Hey, welcome to Outsmart Your Guitar. Glad you could join us. Today in Soloing Concepts, we're going to be discussing building solos. Now, I've talked about this previously in other lesson series, and I'm sure you've listened to other folks also talk about this very idea. What I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through a few examples and demonstrate how I go about putting solos together, using ideas that I want to convey to you that you can also use. All right, so let's just get right to it. But make sure you like and subscribe to Outsmart Your Guitar first. Let's go. Before we get started building a solo, we have to have a progression over which we're going to operate. So what you have on screen here is a real basic, technically a 2-chord progression. Let me play it for you. And that's it. Now, you'll notice in the written, there's that parenthesis of G because you have the built-in slop, as I call it. Slop, slop. But that is actually very deliberate because it does a couple of things. First, it gives you a little extra harmonic information. And second, it actually helps create more motion. Right? And that's always good too. So while this lick is kind of laid back, or this rhythm is kind of laid back, it's also unrelenting. So it creates an underlying sense of urgency. All right? So here's what you do. You pause the video, learn this progression, play it no faster than 84, and record it into your looper. That's what I've done. So that's at 84 beats a minute, more or less. And you don't want any faster. Now, if your rhythm skills aren't quite up to that level, that's okay. This is for everybody. Play it at a tempo where you can manage it fairly well. And that's all we ask, right? Do your best. Then, after you've done that, go ahead and restart the video, and we'll get to the next part. All right, now that you've got your rhythm part down and you've got it recorded into your looper, it's time to start building the solo. Now, I know guitar players who, when it comes to playing solos, they rarely want to play what's on record except for the signature licks, which are necessary. So they'll learn the signature licks, but then they'll play whatever they want. And that's fine to a point. Now, when there's no particular signature lick and the solo is, well, whatever you want, they're real happy because they get to play whatever they want. The problem is they don't really think about creating something that will be consistent night to night. They're relying on the moment and the improvisational brilliance that they think they have. Now, on a good night, they may actually sound really good. However, even when you're in good spirits and things are working well, generally speaking, you can still screw up. So the approach they tend to take is something along these lines. 3, 4. Okay, now, am I going to remember everything that I did there? Probably not, particularly when it comes to tomorrow and waking up and then going in and, wow, what did I play last night? I've had nights where I've done exactly what I'm talking about here. I played a really amazing solo over a particular tune. It wasn't recorded, so I couldn't listen back to it, and I woke up the next day going, what the heck did I play? I don't know, because I was improvising. So that was part of what helped me get to a place of understanding that solos need to have some structure to them, if only thematically. So now, with this particular progression, we know it's in a minor key, and we know it's in A, of course. So we can play pentatonic minor over this, and that's great. So there's a starting place. Now, if you know other scales, you can add notes from those too, but let's just kind of keep it simple for the moment. And I'm going to borrow a B and an F from the Aeolian mode where I feel they would fit. And we'll talk about that. And we do talk about that in Early Help with Your Soloing series as well. So anyway, the first thing you want to do is get comfortable with the progression and get the feel for what you can do over it. So I'm going to stay mostly in the first and the second positions here and give you an idea of what you want to do. So, for example, 3, 4. So you get the idea of what's going on. And now, once you've done that for 5 minutes or so, you want to start playing with a more deliberate intent to find what would make a good beginning lick. Right? 2, 3, 4. So something like that actually is pretty good, okay? So you come up with that. And now you go, okay, well, what can I put on after that? So start with that lick. Oh, well, that was pretty good. And my pickup changed too. So now I've got 2 licks. Okay, now thematically, I may not have played the first lick note for note the same, but that's okay. Was I playing more or less the same thing? Yes. Now the second lick, can I remember it? Well, let's find out. 3, 4. Well, yeah, okay, I actually did. So that was pretty cool. And if you remember it note for note, cool. That makes it a little easier, right? So the idea here is you come up with your first lick, and it's a thematic idea. It's not necessarily note for note. My first lick. Excuse me. It's just on the 3rd and 4th strings, and I start with that. Beyond that, it doesn't matter as long as I just play something similar every time. Eventually, I'll hone it down and maybe start playing it the same every time. Then for the second lick, excuse me, I played it pretty consistently the same, so I've got my first 2 licks. So here's what I want you to do. Pause the video. Play through this pentatonic minor. If you want to borrow the B and the F from the Aeolian mode, you can do that. And get comfortable playing around just in the first and second positions. Don't go too far afield. Let's keep it simple. And come up with ideas as you're jamming through, getting comfortable, improvising and playing over the top of it and seeing what licks work and how you can change licks to make them work. And whatever, come up with an opening lick and then a second lick, all right? And take 10 to 15 minutes or so. Have some fun, don't worry about time limits, but try to focus on just getting the first and the second lick, just like I did, and then restart the video and we'll get on some more ideas. Just want to drop in here for a second and remind you, down in the description, there's a link to patreon.com outsmart your guitar. Go on over there, become a patron, and subscribe, and have access to lessons that are not available here, expanded versions of lessons that are available here, and all the written material to every video lesson. Sound good? All right, let's get back to the lesson. Now, one thing that I learned from vocalists is melody is king. So when you're soloing, if you just pick up the guitar and start playing, what do we tend to do? We just start blowing a bunch of notes out and having a good time with it. And that's fine to a point. But now, I want you to do something different. Put on your rhythm track and start humming something. La 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 la. And the idea is, can you remember it? La 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 la. So la 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 la, something along those lines, right? You see. Right? And that's the idea. La 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 la. Oh, there it is. Yeah, that was it. So la 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 la, and play that over the top of the thing, right? Sounds pretty good, huh? And that's the idea. If you hum or la a melody, the idea is that you're not going to go la la la, because that's not how we sing. I mean, and it sounds kind of silly, and you're not going to remember all that. You're not going to be able to find all that. So come up with ideas. So la 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 la, right? And then, you know, da 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 na 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 na, right? So you got and you can see how that actually sings a lot more than just blowing a lot of notes. So what you can do, and what I want you to do now, is pause the video and alternate between jamming out some stuff and finding some things. And now you've got your first two licks, right? That you've got figured out. Now, for the next two licks, I want you to sing the parts, the la-la bits, and sing them like you would be singing words. Treat them like words, right? Because you're not going to be going, because we don't talk that fast, number one, unless we're from New York. And number two, I'm from New York, so I can make that joke. And number two, it just doesn't make sense and it doesn't sound good, and you're not going to remember everything you did, right? So make it something easy that sings, literally sings like a vocalist would sing. So think like a vocalist in singing your next two bits. All right? Then, once you've done that, restart the video. All right, I've just decided I'm going to make this a multi-part series on building solos. So for this particular rhythm, pattern, progression, we've got pretty much everything covered here. So you know to use improvisation to help you come up with ideas. So you want to be really listening to what you're playing so that you can grab those good ideas and play them again. Thematically, if not note for note, you want to play more or less the same things, right? That's the important part of an improvisational aspect in building a solo. It helps you come up with stuff. Then you can also use the la la or the singing aspect so that you can come up with more melodic parts, not just the diddly diddly parts, but you want to move between diddly diddly parts and melodic, really truly melodic stuff, so that you are creating a more full bodied and a richer sounding solo. I want you to just write a 1 minute solo using thematic elements to create that solo, borrowing from both, well, I'm calling it diddly diddly, right, where you're just improvising and playing stuff, and the singing parts. Create a solo that uses both of these ideas and approaches. Really pay attention to what you're doing. This is the other aspect of building a solo. You really do have to pay attention and be aware when you hit on a cool lick. Just stop right there and play that lick again and use it, right? You don't have to keep improvising because you might lose the lick. So stop right there when you get a good lick and use it. Put it in its place, wherever it belongs in the midst of the solo, and then surround it with some singing melodic stuff, and then other, improvised things that you grab and now start playing consistently, more or less the same, using the thematic idea, right? Okay, so have fun with this. Take 20, 30 minutes, a whole day, a few days to really play around with building a nice 1 minute solo that is repeatable in the sense of it contains specific thematic elements in a specific order. All right? And then when you're ready for part 2, I'll probably have it up by then. And we'll see you there.